Ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Optimize Your Body podcast. I got my man Mark Lobliner, right? Got that? Did I get that right?
Yeah, you got it, man. And you sounded very sophisticated and sexy, saying it with that gorgeous accent of yours. That I was like, I was right away. I'm like, wait a second, you're not from Australia. That doesn't sound Australian. People don't understand. Like, there's a difference between the English. And then you got the Welsh, and then you got the Australians, New Zealand. There's different accents, but Americans, we can't tell. We don't know. Everybody just sounds British to us. Like, oh, you're British.
That's why I'm impressed. That's why I'm impressed, man. You're like, no, you're definitely not Australian. A lot of people, they think, oh, it's a bit of where's his accent from? It's a mixture, man. It's a mix and blend.
Yeah, you don't really know until you hear the curse words, because there are like bloody's a UK thing, right? And that's when they try to not curse.
Oh, bloody hell. Oh, bloody hell, Mark.
Yeah, and the Australians just drop the C word. Like,
all
it's nothing. Like it is their favorite word. But you know what? I've noticed that everybody has caught on except for America. We still think it's a bad word. But if you go anywhere in Europe, Ireland, wherever you go, the C word is like, it's what they use. And if you use that in America, that is our worst word.
It's the worst word. It's not best. Not the best in the UK either. We don't like it too much in the UK, but in Australia, it's just like saying mate, because most of my audience are in America anyway. So that just so they know, we're talking about CUNT. They say it like it's mate. You say that in America, they get bloody insulted.
So I had an account, sport nutrition store that carried our product, and we had a little dispute over something. So I walked in, we went into the store and like, oh, how you doing? They said, you see, and I'm like, I thought they were going to fight me. I thought they were mad at me. And I'm like, guys, what's going on? Like, I feel bit. Like, oh, no. That means like, bro. I'm like, oh. So, but can you imagine if I actually like took that home with me and I went and I called my wife that would not fly. Like, hey, how you doing? You bloody blank. It's like, what? That wouldn't work.
I wouldn't take that risk. Not with your wife, Mark.
Slap.
It's way too much.
I mean, yeah, it's something that, and like, again, like my training partner's from Ireland, and he'll drop it here and there, not on TV, but like, we're training together. He'll be like, come on, get that weight, you blank. And I'm like, oh man, I got to kind of realize like, okay, like I'm in America, but I'm in his domain. So I just have to take it for what it is,
Hey man, tell the audience a bit more about yourself, Mark, and where you're at in your life right now, what it is that you're doing. We'd love to know a bit more about you, man.
Oh man, I'm 43 years old. I'm married. I got 3 kids. My daughter's 18. She's going off to university, or as you call it over here, we just call it college, but it's university. So she's going to Indiana University, Kelley School of Business, direct admin, which if you know about business, it's a top 3 business school. Definitely not my child. I got to get a paternity test on that one. Way too smart to be like, I got to say, she was a great soccer player, won a state championship in high school. She wrestled. Now she's done playing sports. She's just going and working and doing the whole career thing. My son, I have a 16-year-old son. He wrestles, very good wrestler. And I have an 11-year-old son. He plays football and he wrestles. So all my kids, if you see a thing, they also box. My kids have all boxed for years. We had a rule in my house. It's one rule, a simple rule. You have to play a team sport and a combat sport, because I am a big fan of sports to teach kids adversity, teamwork, and team sports and individual sports or combat sports. They all teach unique principles, and they put you in situations that are very parallel to what you'll see in real life. So I think it's done really well for my kids. And I mean, wrestling, if everybody knows wrestling, right? Like, wrestling's awesome because you can literally get pinned, get embarrassed in front of your girlfriend, in front of the whole entire school. So you don't know true humiliation. I box, you don't know true humiliation unless you're pinned or knocked out in front of your bros, like that is, so that teaches them humility. It teaches them to deal with adversity, and, team sports teach you teamwork and leadership. So, I mean, I'm blessed. I've been married to my high school sweetheart. We've been together. We're 27 years in September. So, I have a great life. I live in a place called Brentwood, Tennessee, right outside of Nashville. So I'm just kind of living the life, man.
That's awesome, man. I got a client in Clarksville. How far is Clarksville from you? Is that quite far?
It's 45 minutes. Clarksville is a beautiful outskirts of Nashville. It's got its own little personality. It's kind of a little big suburb. I love the whole, there's not one city I don't like, it's like this Nashville area, even we're in Chattanooga this weekend, like Tennessee. If you're, look, man, I'm a conservative. If you like guns, if you like freedom, like we didn't shut down for the pandemic like everybody else did. If you like freedom, if you like lower taxes, no state tax, if you like being able to defend yourself with firearms, it's a great place to live. So again, it's not for everybody. And in America, we have federalism, which means that if you don't like this stuff, you could find a state. America is basically like 50 different countries that are all like held together by one big military and federal government. But each state is so different. And Tennessee just fits my values. I've lived in California. I've lived in North Carolina. I've lived in Illinois. And for me, Tennessee is just my dream. It's my home, and I'm never leaving.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Love it. So you're an IFBB pro as well, my man, right? Just for the audience,
I am an IFBB pro. I'm not a very good one, but hold on. Just in case you're like, this guy's small, I have a pro card here.
Yes. No, I just for the audience as well, IFBB Pro, they do not hand them out. Just for some context, that is some serious years and years in the making. Like that shit doesn't get handed out.
Despite what they say, like they give away too many pro cards. I would say in some senses they are. I mean, there's so many divisions, right? There's classic physique. Like, yeah, it was hard to get a pro card back in the day. They gave out only so many, but it's because they just had bodybuilding. Now you have bodybuilding, physique, classic physique. You got figure, you got bikini, you got wellness. So there's obviously going to be more pro cards floating around because there's all these different divisions. But I would say that, look, man, I know people, like I competed against guys at USA's when I got my pro card who have been trying to get their pro card for 25 years and they still can't get it. And they literally come in second or third. You have to win. You have to win the show. You have to beat really good people. Is it easier than it was in the 90s? I would say yes and no. I'd say even though we can argue all day about if the quality of competition was better in the 90s as it is now, there's more people who look really good right now. Like I was backstage at the North Americans. I placed third. And I remember I missed my pro card by 2 points. We were separated by 2 points, the first through the third guy. I actually thought the second place guy should have won. But I remember I'm back there and I'm like, holy shit, everybody here looks so good. I'm going to get killed. Like you're back there. And I mean, I was like a fan. Like this guy, his name's Paul. He just competed at the California. He's a great guy. He's the guy I beat at USA's to get my pro card. He was a super heavyweight. I was a heavyweight. And I remember Jose Raymond was my coach and I'm standing backstage with Jose. And I'm like, I knew I won heavyweight because I knew that. And Jose goes, yeah, Jose's got this thick Boston accent. And Jose's like 5'0" nothing, 200 and a lot of something. He's a big round midget. And Jose's like, yeah, you got this. The only way you're going to lose is if a super heavyweight comes in condition, and that never happens. And then they file off the stage and there's Paul. The guy's literally, I was 211 with fucking clothes on. I had to be under 225. I knew I wasn't close. So I was like, I just weighed in a hoodie and clothes. Like I was probably 205. Paul was all of he was all of 260 and like a half inch taller than me. And he was shredded. And I'm like, oh shit, second place again. Somehow, luckily I did beat him. I mean, I'm not going to say that he knows, everybody knows. I mean, even people who hated me were like, yeah, you won that show. But like, man, everybody looked so good. And when I did the New York Pro last year, I didn't do it this year. I'm backstage and I'm like, and my daughter, who was 17 at the time, was with me. And I got my ass kicked. I mean, my daughter's like, holy shit. She's like, yeah, good luck tomorrow, Dad. I'm the old guy. I'm the old guy. I literally brought my daughter. I'm bringing my kids with me. I enjoy the competition. And I feel that if you have a pro card, you got to at least take it for a spin a couple times.
Definitely, man. Yeah, I did a men's physique a few times. Then I ended up switching over to WBFF. I got my pro card over there. But I was going to say, I was just chatting to my girlfriend the other day, and there's so much you can transfer over. And we got into a chat about competing. And I was thinking back, the amount of things you get out of that in terms of patience, mental fortitude, it's the next level of discipline, right?
Yeah.
Literally, your heart and soul goes into it. What would you say, Mark, that what are the main benefits that you've had out of competing and getting to the level you've got to, which you've transferred into life? And it's not just into like business, it's also can be into your relationships and stuff, right? As well, I find.
I think for a lot of people, bodybuilding is not for them because they can't compartmentalize. I don't think competing. I think bodybuilding is for everybody. I started my career with Joe Weider Publications. Joe Weider, if you don't know, he's the one who pretty much created this, and he's the reason we're talking right now. So I started my career working for the magazines, Flex, Muscle Fitness, Men's Fitness. We got acquired by American Media. I ended up working for the tabloids, the Inquirer, the Star. So I was in advertising and marketing. And Joe Weider would say, everybody's a bodybuilder. Anybody who's trying to build their body, whether you're someone who does cardio to look a little better, anybody who builds their body, who tries to improve their body is a bodybuilder. So I believe that bodybuilding is the greatest, healthiest activity in the world. And all the studies now are showing that when you're looking at morbidity risk, which essentially means not to be dire, it's your chances of dying at any moment. Morbidity risk is determined by strength as much as cardio. Grip strength is as much of a predicator of if you die or not as cardiovascular health, VO2 health. That's crazy. That's new data. Stan Efferding talks about it a lot. And also, as you get old, one of the reasons people, get sick, die, get bedridden is sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is muscle loss, muscle wasting. So bodybuilding for me is just such a great activity, and it can get unhealthy at any extreme, right? Like, going for a jog is probably healthy. Running an ultra marathon, I would argue, is probably not too good for your joints. And a lot of times you look at bodybuilders having large charts from the steroids. Well, so do ultra runners. Like there's extremes and then there's healthy. But anytime something gets taken to the extreme, it becomes unhealthy. And that's where bodybuilding gets its bad rap, because bodybuilding, to be that big, you're taking risks, right? Like you're fine. You're a healthy guy. You could tell, like, look at your skin quality. You're in good shape. You're healthy. You have a pro card. You're not Nick Walker. But Nick Walker, I would argue, is the more unhealthy than the average American who, tosses back 2 liters of soda a day and, eats fried food. I would probably say I'd rather be Nick Walker. So, is Nick Walker as healthy as LeBron James? Probably not. Different sport, different modalities, but is he taking more risks than a downhill skateboarder who goes head first with a helmet on? Probably not. So again, you get to that level. Bodybuilding for me is competition. Like I played every sport, ultra competitive in business, and I do scratch some of the itch. I'm very competitive in business. I'm always taking on new challenges, always starting new brands, always doing new business ventures in different industries. And for me, competition is life, and I love winning. And the drive to win is everything in life. So bodybuilding for me, after I was unable to play American football anymore. Oh yeah, most of your people are in America, but if you're overseas, there's football. We play the real football. We're actually using your fucking feet. And then there's soccer, which is how the hell we stole that. I have no idea. And then there's American football, which I believe in Australia, they call gridiron.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Anyway. Yeah, and the UK as well. I think
it's a better name. Why don't we just call it gridiron?
I know, because football is football, right? Soccer. You guys call it soccer. Kicking the ball with your foot is football. But it's weird. They even call rugby league football here. They call everything footy, mate. Footy.
Yeah, for fuck's sake, let's just call it gridiron and
exactly. It makes more sense.
Anyway,
Mark.
So I loved football. I just happened to be vertically challenged. I was undersized. I was able to, go to college and have my college pretty much taken care of because I could play football decently. But when that, wasn't going to pan out, I needed something competitive. And that's when I went into bodybuilding. It gives me something to strive for. Bodybuilding's amazing because you're able to set goals every day. Like you never stop setting goals. And whether it's like one goal I could drive towards, I want to bench 400 pounds. So that's one goal. You hit that goal. You're like, that's awesome. I want to squat 500 pounds. There's another goal. I want to get a 6-pack. There's another goal. So there's an infinite amount of goals. And when you see people fail in life, they generally lack direction, they lack purpose, and they lack a why. So bodybuilding gives you micro and macro goals that you can set. The macro goal should be to be healthy and not die. So there's always a macro goal, right, for fitness, but the micro goals with bodybuilding, like, okay, first, like, I want to compete at a show. You compete. Okay, next time, I want to contend at that show. Okay, you contend. You know, I want to win the show. I win, and then it's like, you know, I want to win a regional show. And then you win. I want to win a national show, and then you go and you win a pro card, and then it's like you win a pro show, and then you're probably not going to win the Olympia, but then maybe that becomes it if you're at that level. Let's say you're not at that level. I mean, let's say you just want to train and work out. Again, the goal setting is still there. So humans without direction are lost. They're listless, you know? And so you need to have direction. You need to have something to go after. You need to have short and long-term goals. You need to have BHAGs, which is big, hairy, audacious goals. And those are things that fitness can give you that nothing else can.
100%. And you hit the nail on the head there with the longevity. Muscle now is known as the longevity organ. I actually had Stan Efferdin on the podcast. Actually, he's a legend.
Oh shit, Stan.
Yeah, what a champion, man. And also when you talk about heart health as well, right? For the heart now, research shows actually strength training is more effective for the heart than cardio because it actually reduces both types of fat around the heart, right? So
yeah, it's so amazing that, I mean, if you look at the evolution of bodybuilding and fitness, you know, it used to be said football players don't lift, it makes you muscle bound. Now every sport from tennis to golf to football to the other football to whatever it is, it all comes down to weight training. Now we have data, just a new study published last week, that exercise increases your acute ability to think and to process things. So if you're taking a test in school, now, let me phrase that. Now, if you go to the gym and you do a 100 rep squat workout, probably not the best thing before taking your ACTs in high school. But if you go and you get an exercise, maybe you lift a little bit of weights, go moderate, let's say a six out of 10 rate of perceived exertion. From what I can tell from the data, and again, data is all about interpreting the data. If I'm about to go take a test, I'm going for at least a walk. I'm doing something. If I'm going to have some intense mental necessity, I'm going to proceed that with something that's active, that gets my body going. And strength training, you know, being a meathead is actually a good thing now.
Crazy. They've done a study here on Alzheimer's as well, with specifically for strength training. Not sure if you heard about that. That was done in Sydney over 6 months. Yeah. They found the two groups, the people that did the strength training, I think it was twice per week. They actually slowed down the rate of dementia and Alzheimer's by, I can't remember what it was,
wow,
maybe 4%. So yeah, it's insane.
4%.
Yeah, it's
and then
insane.
And then you couple that with other bodybuilding things like creatine. Now it's being given to dementia and Alzheimer's patients. So the things we do, but if you look at aging, a lot of it is hormonal related. A lot of it is bone density related. A lot of it is related to balance. A lot of it's related to sarcopenia. And bodybuilding and fitness kind of cures that. You want better balance, do a single leg Romanian deadlift. You know, those are things I always make sure I could do at least 100 pounds on single leg Romanian deadlifts. My theory is if I could do that at 70 years old, the chance of me falling, breaking a hip and dying are much lower. 100%. And that's how people don't realize how many people die unnecessarily, not just from the number one killer, that's heart disease, but from diseases that are preventable simply by being active and moving. And people, and I don't say Americans anymore, because outside of like tribal cultures in Africa, Indonesia, places like that, the world is just fat and the world is lazy and the world doesn't move. And that's why we had a pandemic. 78% of the people first admitted to the hospital in New York were obese. Okay, that virus attacked people who were old, number one, because the average age of death was 4 years older than the average age of death for people who didn't die of it. I'm not going to say the word for respect of you not getting your channel nuked. And and the crazy thing is, so 78 is the average age of death in America. The average age of death from that thing was 82. So the people who were dying were the ones who do the dying. Like they're old people past their age of death. That's when they would have died. But the crazy thing was, obesity is the number one comorbidity for anything. Obesity leads to death from everything else. It makes you more susceptible to cancer, to heart disease, to diabetes, to all these things. So if we weren't as fat as we are, it would have been a blip. Nobody would have noticed. And the reason it took us is because people are too damn fat. So we just need to look at society, and as fitness influencers or whatever we consider ourselves, people who talk about fitness, people who have fitness channels, whatever, we need to do our best to bring as many people in, because we can literally save society and save millions and millions and millions and trillions of dollars on unnecessary healthcare that wouldn't have been used if they would have just done simple things like going on walks. But, you know, we're not there. For some reason, the world governments don't seem to want to prescribe exercise. It's fascinating.
It blows your mind, doesn't it? Metabolic health is the most important thing, right, Mark? And
Oh,
I talked about this, and I did a talk the other day, and it's like they were asking me, what can we do, you know, exercise-wise? What would you recommend? I'm like, just literally walk more, just move more. In the morning, if you
yes.
can do something to start your day, do something for yourself at the start of the day, I always say is the best way to do it, because you've, like you say, you've generated energy then. You've got it out the way, so you're less likely to make excuses, whether that's going to the gym or simply going for a walk. I think people overcomplicate things, you know. Set your alarm early and get your ass out of bed. Yeah, anything requires discipline, even going for a walk. But it always comes down to that as the foundation, doesn't it, Mark? Discipline. And I think people rely on motivation too much. You use that one as a bit of an excuse, or, you know, don't feel motivated. Well, guess what, Mark? You know, you're not motivated most of the time either. You got a show potentially in 2 months' time. Like, motivation is not the right word, is it? Like, you'd never feel like doing a lot of the stuff. Like, sometimes you do, great. You might have a coffee and feel motivated, fantastic. You can't rely on motivation, though. It's a nice feeling, but it's not normally there when you need it, is it? You know what I mean?
You're so correct, man. We came back, we went hiking in Chattanooga, and my daughter's like, let's go to the gym. I wasn't motivated to go train legs after hiking for 60,000 steps. I mean, my daughter's 18. I'm not. Okay.
She's a savage at that age. Bloody hell.
She'll run me into the dirt, bro. I'm like, yeah, let's go. And you know what? You get into it and you almost convince yourself to be there. But look, man, life is a lot of life. You're going to do stuff you don't want to do. Like, people like, man, I hate my job. I'm like, we all do. Like, I own my own businesses. Half the time when I'm driving somewhere, I'm yelling at my wife about stuff that pisses me off. And looking in, you'd be like, this guy has the dream. He owns his own businesses. He does that. It's like, no, you're going to 80% of your career. And even if you do a coaching or whatever, you're going to dislike, because if you're a coach, you still got to balance your budget. You still got to figure out how much taxes you need to pay. You still got to do, maybe you have a couple clients who are just, people are like, and I'm
a coach. Like, I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah. So, I mean, and sometimes it's hard to understand. Like, you got a guy who's just crushing it, losing weight, just getting his results. Then he gains 10. So I've had people gain 10. I don't know how. I couldn't do it if I tried. I've had people slip for like a day and somehow they gain 10 pounds. And then you're like, well, what'd you eat? Well, I just had, no, you didn't. I'm like, that's not physiologically possible. I only had a burger. I'm like, no, you had all the burgers. You went to the Golden Corral, man. You ate everything. Like, dude, there's no possible way that a burger and fries put you up 12 pounds. Have you seen this yourself? I know you've seen it.
100%.
It's like,
yeah,
bro,
especially the competing.
You gotta be honest with me. You got to be honest with me, right? Like,
oh yeah, actually, I forgot about that tub of Ben and Jerry's. Actually, that slipped my mind. Silly me. Oh, and then you go down the list. You're like, yeah, that makes more sense now. Yeah, I get it,
dude. We had this back in. So when I used to own a company called Civation, they've since been sold to Cellucor. I sold it, then it sold to Cellucor, so they own it. So Extend, the intra-workout product. I remember we had a program called Team Civation, and it was free personal training. We would literally train people. We had over 10, I think at one concurrent time, we had like 5,000 or 6,000 people. It was crazy. And Derek Charleboy that's all he did. And we just paid him to help people. And obviously our goal was to get people to train with us. And in turn, they'd buy our supplements. It was like, hey, we'll give you some of this, but if you're going to buy protein, buy ours, right? But it was personalized. It was before apps. Like, he was literally using Excel. Like, that's how cool it was. And I remember this one guy, and for some reason I was like, just copy me on this. So we kept lowering this guy's calories and he would not lose weight. Bro, I shit you not. We had this guy down to 400 calories. 400 calories, and he was still gaining weight. And finally I chimed in. I'm like, dude, he's like, well, I eat exactly what's here. He wrote down his food. He's like, oh yeah, I did have that pizza. I'm like, oh God. So the guy literally, and I think he convinced himself that he ate the pizza, but he didn't really eat the pizza. And it baffles me because you're hiring someone to help you and then you're lying to them. And for me, it's hard because I don't want to sound like a dick, but I've never had problems if I see like an end zone or a goal following a plan to get there. I've never had an eating disorder. I've never had an issue with like not being able to say no to a pizza, but there's people who honestly do. So for me, my issue is being able to empathize with people. That took me decades to figure out because I'm like, just don't fucking eat it. He's like, I couldn't help myself. I'm like, shut up, pussy. Yes. And so I had to kind of figure out how to empathize with people who might not have in that, because they probably have strong minds. They're probably great at their job, whatever. But when it comes to food, it makes people do some strange things.
It does, man, for sure. 100%. This is the highly palatable foods in it as well. And just people just believe in their own bullshit, right? People do that really well, especially with food. The average person underestimates by like 50% the amount of calories they have. You know, you ever get that when people, and again, it's not to look down on people. People say, oh yeah, I eat healthy. They say that at the start of the thing, I eat really healthy. And then we shine a light on things. It's like, okay, well, you know, obviously you're eating a lot more than you thought, right? You're eating thousands of calories over the week, more than you thought you were, right? And the average person, I think they say, you know, I eat 3 times a day. They actually eat 8 times a day on average because mindless eating, right? Snacking, picking on stuff. So that awareness is key, right, Mark?
Oh yeah. I mean, snacking's awesome. Well, I mean, I remember speaking of when I worked at Weider, we had the office.
Just for the audience, Weider is the one that brought Arnie on, basically, right?
Joe, just look up Joe Weider. He had the mustache. Weider. Yeah, and he was my boss. It was actually a really cool. I was 19 years old when I started.
That is so dope, man.
It's a great way to start your career. It's a good story. I learned a lot, and that was unfortunately was towards the end of his life where he was kind of losing a little bit of his sharpness. But he was still Joe Weider, you know. But Denise, who was our office assistant, she used to always have chocolate on her desk. And one day I figured out I'm going to count how many extra calories people get. And they were the little ones, you know, the fun size.
Yeah,
dude, people were getting like an extra 700 calories a day just walking by her desk because Denise was a kind woman and she'd always keep that mofo full. So the bowl was always full of chocolate. It was the good shit too, like the Crackle and the Mr. Good bars. The good shit. It wasn't like the cheap, nasty. It was like the good it was like a Tootsie Roll. St. Planet Fitness. It was the good chocolates. So you walk by, you're like, oh, it's just one popping in your mouth. Next thing you know, you got literally half of your daily caloric needs covered by her chocolates.
Bloody hell, man. It's crazy, isn't it? Hey, man, just I want to kind of summarize this with, you know, nutrition and mindset related, because you said the reality is when you're in the zone, because you're a pro level bodybuilder, right? You're super disciplined and you've done this for a long time. And it's just the way your mind is wired now because you've done the reps of discipline, right? I like to say it's almost like a muscle in the brain, right? That discipline. I'm
going to steal that. The reps of discipline. That is so fucking good.
Yeah.
That is so good. The reps of discipline. That is fantastic.
I don't know where that came from, Mark. I better have a double espresso more often, man, before these podcasts.
I'm going to go with the cancer-causing energy drinks.
Lovely. But yeah, man, because you've done it, you know, and you've eaten real food for long enough time, you've done enough bodybuilding comps and everything else. But like, I mean, even the fact now that you might compete in 2 months, like even at that point, I don't think people understand like how treacherous that is. Even if you're like 1 to 2 months out from a comp, and you're just,
oh my God,
you just seem like it's just another day. You know what I'm saying?
So here's the thing: I'm human, and what happens to me is I get so lean that if I don't eat frequently, no matter what the composition of the food, my blood sugar drops and I become a dick. And it happened this weekend because I was on normal eating intervals because we're on like my kids were at a wrestling camp in Cleveland, Tennessee. For those who know, you have people who know this, and it's 25 minutes outside of Chattanooga, which is gorgeous. And we live about 2 hours out from Chattanooga. And I was on normal eating. I was eating like with the girls, right? Like we eat about the same amount of times a day. And we were hiking though, so my blood sugar would drop. And all of a sudden I'd find myself just saying nasty things and being a dick. And I'm not a dick. I'm normally a nice guy. And then, so it got to a point where the last day, I finally figured it out. So like, it was 3 days. So a day in, it was like, if I got like that, like my daughter would just hand me an outright bar. That's my bar. She'd hand me something to eat. She'd be like, eat. And so I'm at the point now where Yeah, I'm in the 212 division. So I was 208 this morning. I got room to play. I'm plenty lean. So it's like, whatever. But again, like the chance of me, again, it's 40-60 if I actually do it. Like I have so many work obligations right now. And that's another thing. It's okay. As a pro, you don't have to commit till a week out from the show. And I'm not one of those guys like, I don't like, I don't want to sound like that guy because I have tremendous respect for everybody. And I don't think there should be any rules in bodybuilding. Bring your best body to the stage. I don't care how you get it. It's not a tested show. Don't do that shit in the OCB. But if you're an IFBB pro, whatever you want to do, that's you. You take the risks that you want to take. I'm 43, dude. I got a lot of stuff. When you're dealing with more chemistry, so to speak, like timing insulin and different drugs, if you have to kind of know what you're doing. For me, you could consider me as like almost like because most of my people I've prepped are natural bodybuilders. A natural bodybuilder, like, do you know who Kurt Widener is?
I've heard the name.
Look him up. He's the most shredded motherfucker you'll ever see. He's amazing. Brian Whitaker. These guys, they were in the early 2000s, 2004 to like 2011. They were like, they're two best friends, but these guys are just diced, just fucking shredded. But they would do 6-7 shows in like a 3-month period. And they could hold it because as a natural bodybuilder, what do? You eat a little bit more carbs on Friday and then you get on stage and you go home. But when you're dealing with the chemistry involved in enhanced bodybuilding, there's a lot more nuance. There's timing, there's peaking. Natural bodybuilders don't really peak. You kind of look the same.
Yeah, I was natural as well, so I totally understand where you're coming from, man. And how much you can manipulate how you look just with sodium and carbs is insane. I mean, you guys get that,
but even so, like how you look in the gym 2 weeks out should be pretty much how you look in the gym on stage. That's because you're natural, like that's what you can do. So for me, it's just a matter of, I'm going to eat a little more on Friday, and I'm there because I don't do a lot of the stuff that many people might do. So it's not that big. So I could be like, you know what? I think it's a good time for me to do this, Yeah. But I'm not the best. Like, I'm okay. I was good enough to get a pro card, but I mean, am I going to win the Mr. Olympia? No, I have a mirror. I'm cognitively sane, but for me, it's about, I love the drive. I love getting on stage, and I like standing next. I like to see myself next to these guys because they're so impressive, and I just don't want to look like I don't belong. So that's kind of where I stand.
That's not going to happen, man.
I train to win.
I got to send the audience
but I'm
to your page.
I train to win. I train to win, but I'm also realistic in the outcome.
Yeah, 100%, man. And as you say, just having that drive to win, like you said at the start, that's what life's all about, man. That's what life's, especially I think for men even more so, right? We're competitive by nature. Any man who says it, and maybe there's some men who are not, right? But generally inside, that feeling of losing hurts so much, right? The drive to win is just needs to be there, right? But dude, what would you say to the audience, just to wrap it up? Because look, you got 3 kids, you got multiple businesses, you're competing at the highest level. Like, what would you say? Because a lot of people, let's be honest, they'll make excuses for not being healthy until they have to make time. I haven't got time, for example. Then they have to make time for medication later down the line, and grim times. What would you say? How do you do it, man? And what would you say to people just to get that consistency and get healthy as healthy as possible?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we want to live as long as possible, right? Like, I want to be on earth to see my kids get married and have kids or whatever they decide to do. I want to be here for them, but it's also about quality of life. Like, I coach my kids. I just got back from, I own a youth performance facility in Franklin, Tennessee called Legacy at Carbon. So I go and I train, high school athletes, junior high athletes, elementary school athletes. We have a couple D1 guys, a couple NFL guys. So, I mean, I want to be able to train alongside these guys, but also beyond that, I want to be able to play with my kids. Like, my son plays football and I coach his football team. I want to be able to go out there, but I don't want to be that dad on the sideline resting his hands on his stomach. I'm out there with them, running on the field, running plays with them. If they need someone to hold a bag or even take a hit, by an 11-year-old in pads, which hurts, by the way. Those kids can hit pretty hard.
I bet they can.
You know, I'm out there with the kids. I'm out there having fun. You know, I play catch with my son all the time. We go on hikes all the time. I think that mobility, I remember when I first started training people, I was 17 years old, and it was how I put myself through college. And there's a guy I was training. He had a couple strokes. He couldn't use the right side of his body. He was the dream client, dude. This guy would come in every day and he would give you 120%. And he could only really use one side of his body. Like such a stroke, the dude had 7 degrees and he was just living his life. He was optimizing with half of his body. And one day I just asked him, I'm like, hey, why? Why do you push it so hard? Why do you have 7 degrees total? Like there were a couple master's degrees and a couple, double majors. He's like, because I can, because God gave me the power to be able to do this. Right. So we have this ability to move. The body is so amazing. Like we can move, we can walk, we can jump, we can lift things. We can mold our body to look a certain way. So our body's malleable. Our body can either be fat and sloppy or lean and muscular. You have one body. It doesn't take much time. At the peak of your training, how long did you train a day?
How long did I train a day? At the peak of my training? Yeah. You mean in terms of competing and all that kind of stuff?
To get ready for your pro.
Okay, I would say a day, I would say probably about 2 hours.
That's to be a pro.
To be a pro.
You were at the best of the best. Dorian Yates trained for 4 hours a week. He was 6-time Mr. Olympia. It doesn't take much. To get a good body, you could literally weight train 3 days a week for 30 to 60 minutes, watch what you eat, and walk a little bit more. Park your car a little further from the grocery store. It's not that hard. When you wake up in the morning, instead of sitting down and watching TV, watching the news, reading a paper, drinking coffee, go for a 15-minute walk. Like it's not that difficult. But the thing is, it's an investment. It's like putting money in the bank, right? If I do this 15 minutes a day, when I'm 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, I'm still crushing life. I'm still getting up in the morning. I'm still getting a boner. I'm still able to have sex. Because by the way, you know what, when you're obese, you know what one of the first things to go is? Your ability to obtain an erection. Mm-hmm. What is an erection? It's blood flow. And why am I saying, I'm not saying this to make people disgusted or to get shock value. If that doesn't bring you to reality, obesity kills everything. Being unhealthy kills everything. It all comes down to blood flow. So if you're unable to do that, also your heart. Do you really want to be on statins when you're 40, 50, 60 years old? Do you know the muscular pain that statins can cause? It's worse than your hardest workout. Your hardest workout. Statins cause breakdown of muscle. It will make you more sore than you've ever been in your life. Do you want to be on beta blockers for your heart? You know how tired beta blockers make you? You're walking around like a zombie, having to take naps, like you have narcolepsy all the time. And to prevent that, it's pretty simple. Put the cookie down, not all the time, but most of the time. Don't eat the damn cookie. Okay. Eat more fruits, eat more vegetables, eat more lean meats, and exercise. And if you don't like weight training, that's fine. You don't have to lift weights. There's so many other ways to exercise. I mean, so it's an investment in the future. So I don't know if you put money away for retirement, but you put money in the account and it grows and it grows. And it's an average of 10 to 15% over the lifetime of your savings. If you invest with a good investment banker, look at it that way. You're literally banking these 15 minutes a day and they're growing. So those 15 minutes become years and years and years of quality of life. What idiot wouldn't do that?
Simple as that.
It's a for me, I can't empathize with people who can look at that small time investment. It's not money, it's time. You can do everything you need with some simple bands and a street. You don't need to buy crazy equipment. Okay, to look like you or me, yeah, you need some heavy shit, right?
Yeah.
But like to be healthy and look pretty good, you just need to move. It's not that
100%.
difficult. You just need to move.
And you hit the nail on the head. Well, Stan was saying that the other day, right? Stan Efferdin with that study, actually more, and you wouldn't want to take statins anyway. It's actually going for a walk is more effective than taking statins for your blood sugar levels. Go for a walk after eating. I think it was a 10-minute walk.
Yep.
I think they're saying that's so powerful that can actually prevent the type 2 diabetes or reduce
I think
it.
I think that was his metformin.
Metformin, sorry, not statins. Yeah, got that one wrong.
Yeah. I'm very familiar with that. And Stan is what's great about Stan is he's become such a knowledgeable expert on health related things.
100%.
And he doesn't follow anybody. Like he's one of the few who, everybody came on like LDL doesn't matter, cholesterol doesn't matter. Stan's like, well, I think it does. And it matters enough, and it's easy to control. Like, okay, if you're a carnivore dieter, maybe it's time to switch to leaner cuts of beef. I mean, because the studies are they're a lot of them are population studies, but there's and I'm not a big correlation guy, but when there's so much correlation, so there are natural ways to improve your cholesterol, natural supplements, citrus bergamot, niacin increases your HDL. Then you got nattokinase. They had a new study on that. Nattokinase, they used to recommend 2,000 to 4,000 FUs a day. That's the measurement they use. It also prevents blood clots, which a lot of people are getting after whatever happened in 2020, whatever's causing it. I don't know. But 10,000, I think it was 10,800 FUs a day, which seems like a lot, but it's very inexpensive. So there are natural remedies, but forget that. I just had on my podcast, Jose Antonio. He's the CEO of the ISSN, International Society of Sport Nutrition. You always heard people say that diet is number one and training complements it. He says nothing matters unless you're training. So the thought that diet is more important than training is actually out the window. Jose said these great words too. He said, you can outrun a shitty diet.
Wow.
You can. You really can. You can mitigate a lot of the effects of being not the greatest eater, of having an occasional treat, or maybe every day you just like having pancakes for breakfast. You can out-train that. Now, I'm not recommending you do that, but in the grand scheme of things, exercise is king.
Especially strength training, though. I can imagine strength and movement, strength training and movement, right? I would say he was probably talking about it. The effects on the metabolism of strength training is insane, isn't it? Metabolic health.
Oh, yeah. And also, like, you look at diabetes, GLUT4 uptake, like you have this GLUT4 transports the glucose and the insulin. So it basically signals the GLUT4 to do their thing. So, I mean, it's just, but it's a good mix. Stan, everybody's like, Stan's anti-cardio. No, Stan's just anti-forced cardio and pro-sleep. And that's another thing, sleep. People need to get quality sleep, and they just don't. I mean, there's so many things, but at the end of the day, if you exercise, you're probably going to sleep better.
Yeah.
If you work in a cubicle all day, like you're sitting at a desk all day, and then you can't sleep at night, and you don't exercise, why would you be tired? You just sat down all day. You have to have something to make you tired. Get out and exercise. After sitting that cubicle day, go to the gym. Maybe go before work. I'm a morning trainer. I'll be there as early as 5 a.m. Get your work done, and then you're done. So I think that people just need to understand that training and diet and exercise, it's just an investment in your future. Look at it like a stock portfolio.
Love that, man. Love that. That's such a good analogy. All right, brother. Mate, really appreciate your time. Where can the audience find you, man? I'll add this in the show notes.
Oh, that's awesome. So my handle on Instagram and Twitter, if you don't like political stuff, don't follow my Twitter. I do get political. You might not agree with me. If you do, just to give you a heads up, like I'm from Tennessee. So just do the math. Like, I live in Tennessee and I moved here because it's my ideals. And
dude, it's crazy though in America. I'm glad you're saying that, because in America, like with the divide the divide is insane, bro. Like, it's insane.
Well, the thing is, I think that there's a pandering to wokeness, and there's a pandering to crazy fringe shit that people are just like, I've had enough of it. So I think, but lucky for us, in our defense, we have federalism, which means that, like I said earlier, like we have 50 states and they're all sovereign countries, basically. So I can live in Tennessee. For example, lockdowns, we did not even have mask mandates in Tennessee. Not once, not one day
Just
of
as
it.
well, they don't fucking work
Whereas,
anyway. What's the point in those days? I mean, that's the way it should have been.
no,
They had it in Florida as well, didn't they? I think Florida was similar to you guys, wasn't it?
well, we were actually more lax. The only state that was more lax than us is South Dakota, but we don't count them because there's like 3 people there. So like, here's the deal. Like I'm a big freedom guy, right? Like, so
Same.
again, like I put out some spicy takes, but as you can tell, I'm really a nice guy in real life. So there's Mark Lobliner, MarcLobliner. My YouTube channel is Tiger Fitness, youtube.com/Tiger Fitness. So basically they're Mark Lobliner Mark Lobliner is my personal handle on YouTube. My personal handle is the same as my business handle. That's Tiger Fitness. It's mostly fitness videos. So yeah, but we have a good time, and I'm never going to stop doing content because it's a voice and it's a way if people are looking for information that's a bit more nuanced. And like you could tell, I'm not on really any team. I'm on team movement, team healthy, team exercise. I'm not anti any diet. If you want to be vegan for health reasons, not even health, but for, moral and ethical reasons, I completely understand that. Let's find a way to make it best for you. Let's find a way to make it work best. And so me, I'm just about how can we make the population healthier, and how can we, I mean, we just honestly, as fitness people, we need to band together and we need to work together and not work against each other, because we have a world to save, man. Obesity is what caused what happened in 2020, because people were already so damn sick. And if we can get just 10% of the population healthier, we reduce the risk of that ever happening again.
100%, man. We're on the front line. Love that. We got to work together. The thing is a lot of, especially in the fitness world and the coaching world and stuff, it's like people are trying to split hairs with things, and other coaches are trying to say, oh no, this is the right study that did this. It's like, look, we need to get people to move. We need to get people to train and to eat better. We need to focus on the big rocks and work together to achieve that. I love that, bro.
Hey man, as long as we're on the same team and we're about freedom and health, man, I will take a bullet for anybody. Like Greg Doucette, like he didn't say much during like 2020. I actually got canceled. I got shadow banned on YouTube. Oh God, it was bad. I lost millions of dollars because of that, but it was worth it because I did what was right. Was it worth it? Let me get back to you on that. But Greg came out in 2021 and started speaking out. It was a little late, but you know what? Like, as long as we could band together now and kind of speak up, and he has a bigger voice than me. So let's go. I mean, let's do this. And I just think that we have our infighting, but the people fighting are the ones just trying to sell stuff. Yeah. Like, think about it. Like, here's how you sell stuff. You say, this is bad, mine is better. And you're a grifter. They're just grifters. Like, that's it. But the people who really want people to reach their goals, they're much more nuanced, and they're just looking at, like, Alan Aragon. I don't know if you follow him. He's amazing. No, I've known Alan for years. Alan is the most science-based guy you'll ever meet, but he will never say something's bad. He will always just be like, well, that's one way, but the science says, and here's what. So, I mean, guys like that, like Alan Aragon, they've always been, the voice of reason. And again, Alan and I used to throw down in the old message boards back in the early 2000s. Like, there's good people out there. There's good fitness people, but you can usually tell who's trying to sell you stuff, who's grifting. They usually go from one, fad to the next. And we're guys like, I can tell you and I, we're like, well, how do we help people?
100%.
And how do we get this message across? And not everybody's the same, but principles do work. It's like when people say, well, it works for some and not for others. I don't know. Like, if you put someone on a controlled Twinkie diet, they'll still do better than an uncontrolled standard American diet. So I don't like that whole, like, well, everybody's different. I don't know. We're all kind of humans. Glucose metabolism is glucose metabolism. I don't know. Yeah. Do you have something I don't like, unless you have some weird disease where you can't process things. Like, our bodies are pretty similar. And did you see the new data? I'm sorry to carry this on.
No, man, I got all the time in the world, man. I was more mindful of your time. Hit me.
So the data is, remember people used to always blame thyroid for weight loss? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you saw this study. It came out 2 weeks ago. So they had a low, mid, and high. So a low performing thyroid, basically hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, and then a normal thyroid. And they all had similar weight loss,
Really?
showing that the study demonstrated that thyroid does not prevent fat loss. That if you have a shitty thyroid, thermodynamics still exists.
Yep, 100%.
So no one can say, well, I have a bad thyroid. So what's crazy is that the excuses are null and void now, because essentially it comes down to normally calories. It comes down to
decisions,
energy.
man. I'm so glad you said this, Mark, because I've had it time and time again. I've had women with menopause. I actually had one woman who had hypothyroidism, and we actually managed to get a thyroid functioning properly again for the first. She'd been taking the medication for like I forgot what it's called now, thyroxine or whatever it's called.
Yeah, it's well, there's T4 T3 blend. That's so there's Armor, which is a natural one, and what is, yeah, I no. Why am I blank? But not Cytomel. Anyway.
Yeah, she was I think it was, like a type of thyroxine or whatever it was. She was taking that for 2 years, but within 4 months, again, just from eating better, actually we had to reverse diet because she struggled with yo-yo dieting for ages.
Of course, yeah.
And strength training made she was out, her thyroid was functioning again straight away. And I've had women, with menopause and everything else, and don't get me wrong, these things obviously play a part, right? Hormone function. But with your decision making in terms of your lifestyle, your stress management, your sleep, you're training properly, you're doing appropriate training. I think that's an important word, right, Mark, in terms of what type of training are you doing for you, right? Either strength training is appropriate, or you're doing, stuff which is not, overdoing volume or whatever it is. And then sleep, like we said earlier, and obviously adequate movement. When you do those things consistently, everything else, like, helps moving one way or the other, generally, right? So if you can move it the right way, everything else tends to improve, right? It's kind of like common sense, but people make these, they make these stories up in their head. And don't get me wrong, like you say, it might play a part. I'm not saying it doesn't play a part when your thyroid is not functioning properly, but there's so much you can do to turn this round that you need to understand that.
Your body's also a complex system, like in physiology, when we're dealing with athletes, if let's say their left knee's bothering them, they might have a problem with their right ankle. Your body compensates, right? So if your kidneys or your liver or all that stuff aren't functioning correctly, it will cause some downstream effects on other organs, on other things in your body. And that's why sometimes you have blood work for something and they're like, well, that can indicate this. I'm like, how the hell does that indicate that? Well, there's all these different pathways and processes. So you can't look at the body in a vacuum. Like, the body is such a complex, crazy system of things that just happen. Like, your heart beats. You ever think of the heart, how crazy that is? It just beats.
Involuntary, just beating away.
Yeah, it's just crazy, just beating. And then we found a way through science to take another heart and replace your heart if it breaks, which is insane.
Absolutely insane.
I mean, you just have to look at this, and a lot of the things, like, you look at what controls hormones, a lot of it's controlled through the brain. You look at immune system, controlled through the gut.
Yep.
You got to look at the body as this system. And that's why a lot of bodybuilders just look at the outside. Well, I'm going to take my pre-workout, I'm going to train hard, but you also have to realize, like, your insides are just as important in all these processes, because you're not going to optimally build strength, muscle, and feel good if you're neglecting your insides. And that's why you see these bodybuilders and their skin's yellow, they're jaundiced, they look terrible. It's because their kidneys and their liver and all the other organs in between are starving for nutrients. They're malnourished. They're being, having God knows what thrown at them every day. They have to filter through your system. And you could tell bodybuilders, when they're a lot of shit, their skin just looks so unhealthy. And you could tell, because, again, your skin is an organ, like, it's the largest organ in your body. So you just have to look at this big system, this big process that is the human body. And you need to extrapolate these different things from it, but you can't just work in a vacuum, right? So that's why I always tell people, like, you need to pay attention to your liver. You need to pay attention to your kidney. You need to get blood work done every 6 to 12 months. I know people in their 40s who've never had their blood work done.
Crazy,
it's bananas. It's insane.
And the worst thing you can do is put that off. Because I full transparency, I was putting it off for a few months. I had it done recently, and everything was good, thankfully. But I was like, nah, I'm healthy. I'll put it off. I'll be fine. No, even I shouldn't be doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like every 6 to 12 months, get it done, like you say.
And if you're I have this thing, it's like, you got to get your skin checked. I've had skin cancer, right?
Oh
You
shit.
got to have, well, it was the weak one, I probably got it when I was a kid. I was
Okay.
one of those kids who would, be out in the sun so much that my skin would peel.
Got it.
I was that idiot.
Especially down
Although
there,
I was
man,
in
in
Santana
Tennessee,
Motion.
bloody hell. If you grew up there.
Well, no, I was in California at the time,
Oh,
even
okay.
worse.
Probably even worse.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I had a colonoscopy 2 months ago. Make sure your butthole's in good shape, whatever.
Of course.
Blood work, those are things that we tend to overlook, but you really need to do them. And a calcium heart score. You get your calcium scoring, which measures, the atherosclerosis if you have heart disease. So you have to get those things done. And people just neglect them or they put them off. But if you detect things early, you can either course correct through lifestyle, or that's when sometimes big pharma does play a role. Like if you have atherosclerosis and it's that packed in, okay, maybe statins are for you because they do help to reduce arterial plaque. They decrease the inflammation. And at that point, if your heart stops, who gives a shit if your muscles are sore? So but if you catch it early enough, maybe you don't need statins. Maybe you can go some other route. Maybe it's a lifestyle change situation. So those are all things we really need to be cognizant of as we age. And, especially as males and females, it's like women too. Like my wife got a colonoscopy. She had polyps. They have to precancerous polyps. So now she knows I have to go in 10 years. She has to go every 3 years because she's at high risk for, cancer down there. It's just certain things but there is technology. And I know a lot of people are anti-medicine after 2020 because we were kind of betrayed by the medical institutions and big pharma. But at the end of the day, man, there's good doctors, good treatments that we all need to take advantage of because, I mean, at the end of the day, if you can utilize modern science and modern testing and early detection and couple that with lifestyle changes, and I'm not going to say you're going to live till you could die tomorrow. We get hit by a bus. Your heart could just decide to stop due to a congenital defect, but your quality of life will be so much better when you just do that. So that's my advice to people. Just be proactive.
Love it, bro. Hey, Mark, thank you so much for your time, my man.
Thank you.
There was so much gold in that episode, man. Honestly, thanks so much, mate.
My pleasure. Anytime. I'd love to be back.
Thanks, legend.